Part of that slow growth is that I didn't have product. When I sell out of wine, I can't just release new wine. I have to wait. So just this winter was the first time that I actually had enough product to be able to sell online and support myself. And there's so much scarcity in wine that it's a bit of a mental gymnastics game of that
Hmm.
you're playing all the time.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I already put in an order for grapes that I'm going to sell that I won't sell until 2026. So I'm already thinking super far out. I have so much wine in my cellar that I can't sell. So like, yeah, sure, I've been selling wine my ton and um, picking up steam, paying my dad back a bit, but ultimately, like, I have so much product in the cellar that I can't sell yet. That's still like in process of making. Um, so it's a very capital intensive, very time intensive industry. But I think the longer you put off gains, just the more you get in the future. So I'm really trying to play the low time preference thing, just wait on wine to age until it's perfectly ready, not rush sales, and build a brand just with super high quality wine.
All right, guys, welcome to the Vigilante Experience. Today we have a very special guest. We got Ben Justman. So he has a very interesting thing that he does, and he's a winemaker. So a lot of people out there drink wine. I personally got into wine recently. I'm liking, the Chardonnay. That's kind of my thing now. But I'm really interested what he does with making wine. I want to hear your story, Ben. I want to thank you for coming over here. If you're new to the show, make sure that you subscribe. You're bringing celebrities, we're bringing business owners, we're bringing people from all corners together to discuss things that are going to help everyone that's watching. How do we make a business? How do we run a business? How do we buy Bitcoin? How do we get into all these things that are happening around us? So, Ben, why don't you introduce yourself just for a minute and let people know who you are?
Thanks for having me on, Carlos. My name is Ben. I'm a winemaker in Western Colorado. I make natural wine in the highest wine region in North America. So, super high elevation wine, which brings out a lot of fruit and some awesome electric acidity. I specialize in Pinot Noir and make a lot of other awesome reds, but all my wine is natural in that there's no additives that can make you feel horrible, give you headaches, super minimal sulfites, and I do a natural or wild fermentation. So you get a lot more connection to the land, interesting flavors that you don't get in conventional winemaking. And also, it leaves you in a state that after you drink it, you don't get hungover, which is pretty crazy. But once you start drinking natural wine, once you start drinking European wine, a lot of European winemakers make wine the same way. It's a pretty amazing feeling to be able to enjoy special moments, drinking a glass or a bottle with some friends and not feel pain the next day. And our connection, Carlos, is leaning into the Bitcoin side of business and how creating things both to sell for Bitcoin and just with Bitcoin in mind has led to interesting breakthroughs for both of us, it sounds like.
Yep. No, I think I ran into you on Twitter and I'm like, wait a minute, I got to talk to this guy. He's into Bitcoin. He's making wine. I just got into wine. So you're probably making me feel a little bad here because I got into the wine because I like Cooper's Hawk. I don't know if you heard of Cooper's Hawk. Have you heard of that place?
No.
It's kind of like a chain. They specialize in wine, I guess. I think they make
Hmm.
it in California, but I'm sure it comes with the additives and all the
Hmm.
preservatives and stuff like that. So, why, just from a wine perspective, like, why would I choose your wine
Hmm.
over, let's say, Cooper's Hawk? They got a nice restaurant. They're giving you all the wine. Is your wine, so simply by having no preservatives? I mean, that's a lot of value, right? I mean, I don't want any nasty stuff on my drinks.
Yeah, and when you drink wine, you kind of assume that it's just grapes. That's what they make wine with, right? But there, within winemaking, there's so much additives going into it. You can manipulate the flavor, texture, taste,
Mm.
color, aromas. It basically any feature of wine you can think of, the that can be manipulated by chemical additives. And specifically, the thing people know about is sulfites. So sulfites are used to preserve wine from oxygen and to kill off anything living within the wine. A lot of people think that the bacteria that lives in wine is actually good for you, good for your gut. And the more I'm learning about gut health, it makes a lot of sense to me. It's also, my wine is unfiltered and unfined. So The vining process is just there's adding less to my wine, and then the filtration. A lot of people believe that there are lots of benefits in that you're filtering out from the wine, specifically the bacteria cultures. But look,
Wow.
Carlos, I started out drinking Franzia in college. Was my first experience with wine. I grew up on a vineyard, and I just never liked wine. My dad pushed it on me because he was making it, and I just never liked it. So I started with Franzia too. I started with lower than what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And it just takes a little while to develop taste for it, try a bunch of different things. When you're drinking bad wine and you don't know what it is, like it's just wine to you.
It's
So
just
you have
wine.
no
Yeah.
idea. You have to develop a bit of a taste, try a bunch of different things. And I think when you get to that point, outside of the health benefits that I'm talking about, that's when you're really going to appreciate natural wine. I buy a lot of wines or have bought a lot of wines from, I hate to crap on it, but like from California, where it's the, let's say, Cab Sauv, it's from different places in California and they all taste the same to me. I feel like when I open this last bottle of wine, I've had this wine before. And there's place for that. You know, you have consistency, you know what you're buying, you know what to expect, and you get that. But when you're drinking wine, you really get into it. You're really there for the art. You want to taste all these
Yeah.
different flavors. You want a
Mhm.
wine that tastes different in all these different places. And when you're adding all these chemicals to manipulate the flavor of the wine, it starts to taste, they all start to taste in a homogeneous way. So when you get natural wine made with less additives in all different places, it's a very unique experience. So I'm doing natural wine in the highest wine region in North America, and it just makes for awesome wine out here.
All right, I gotta try it. I'm gonna probably order some after this call. so, so how did this all start? I mean, you didn't just turn into a winemaker just like that. I want to hear the story behind that.
Yeah, so as I mentioned there, my dad had been making wine for 15 years, somewhat as a hobbyist, but there were a few years he had a ton of wine and had to sell it. And honestly, like my dad is a great farmer, great businessman, built houses his whole life, very adept person, and he figured out how to make wine, but I don't think he has a sense of taste or smell. So I saw that like a lot of confidence in my dad, but I'm also like, I don't know how you figured out how to make wine. I must be able to figure this out. So when I was 25, I knew I wanted to start a business, kind of wanted something super committed and had that infrastructure and knowledge that he would teach me how to make wine. I could use all his materials and stuff. And then I committed to that. I got the liquor license for like 6 months and dropped my entire net worth into the winery, borrowed money, and got home to start making wine and realized my dad didn't really know what he was doing. So that was like my, all right, you're in this moment. Really dove in, learned a ton, also trial by fire. And that was 2019, made my first vintage and it turned out well. I sold out once I could sell it 2 years later. And then the next year, even bigger sales, and have just been growing from there. So
Nice. Yeah.
meanwhile, I did Bitcoin like right at the same time. I was also building my house. So a lot of like deep long-term projects and learning there. And just through learning about wine and then learning about Bitcoin throughout the same time, I've kind of oriented my business to follow both my passions and have, I guess, become the Bitcoin wine guy.
And that's cool. I mean, that's a cool story. Not everyone can say they're a winemaker out here. So, you mentioned you took out a loan, you borrowed, and in order to scale the business to build what you've built.
Mhm.
But you went the entrepreneurial way. You went all in. Which a lot of people are scared to do that. Especially a lot of the people that are watching here are people who are on the fence. They're not sure what they want to do. There's something that they're passionate about, but they're like, dude, I don't know, man. I could just do a 9 to 5, be pretty secured on a desk job, go back home, go to bed, wake up for the 9 to 5, and I'm good. You went all in, but you did have to get a loan from someone. Was that, you know, how hard was it to get a loan? Was it from a bank? Was it from someone that you knew that supported you? Like how was that deep dive and how'd you get that loan?
Yeah, so the loan came from my dad, and that made it very easy because one, I knew I was going to figure out a way to pay it off eventually. But it was my dad started out building houses and got the money to build his first house from the life insurance settlement when his dad died when he was 27. So he got that from his mom, basically the equivalent amount of money that I borrowed from my dad. So it was kind of like
Yeah.
in my family to pay forward your kids to bet on themselves. So I was able to get that funding. Like I said, that some of the infrastructure was there for me to start the winery, That said, like there's a lot of not there's a lot lower capital intensity companies to start. It would
Mhm.
be impossible for someone to start a winery like I did
Yeah.
without, yeah, sure, maybe you can get the loan, but like realistically, no. I already had a vineyard in place and a bit of like production infrastructure. So I've still went like crazy all in, more money than I'd ever made in my life to bet on myself, but it was a bit of more of a low hanging fruit than it would be starting a winery for anyone else. That said, it's definitely scary to bet on yourself. And I have kind of slowly ripped the band-aid off with that. The first year of making wine, I had a full-time 9 to 5 job as a geologist drawing geologic maps. And I just spent all my free time dealing with the winery.
Yep.
The second year, I moved home to where the winery was and built a house with my dad. So full-time job and then work in the winery as well. Then I sold my first wine. So I spent that summer selling wine at farmers markets, made a little bit of money, but not really anything, and just kind of survived. And then that winter, I moved to a ski town and worked at a high end restaurant. Somehow I was able to get that job and made decent money, but ultimately, like, not paying for not paying for the winery.
Right.
So then the next summer, moved back home, sold wine at farmers markets again. Sales went crazy. I worked my ass off. I was doing 5 farmers markets a week to start out. And then that winter, that since that was my sales channel, was in person, I got a job at a ski town, working at a restaurant, and still supported myself. And so then the next summer, last summer, I sold wine all summer, and then my online sales were picking up to a point where I could actually support myself with just the business. Part of that slow growth is that I didn't have product. When I sell out of wine, I can't just release new wine. I have to wait. So just this winter was the first time that I actually had enough product to be able to sell online and support myself. And there's so much scarcity in wine that it's a bit of a mental gymnastics game of that
Mhm.
you're playing all the time.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I already put in an order for grapes that I'm going to sell that I won't sell until 2026. So I'm already thinking super far out. I have so much wine in my cellar that I can't sell. So like, yeah, sure, I've been selling wine my ton and um, picking up steam, paying my dad back a bit, but ultimately, like, I have so much product in the cellar that I can't sell yet. That's still like in process of making. Um, so it's a very capital intensive, very time intensive industry. But I think the longer you put off gains, just the more you get in the future. So I'm really trying to play the low time preference thing, just wait on wine to age until it's perfectly ready, not rush sales, and build a brand just with super high quality wine.
Man, dude, that's crazy. I mean, you're basically planting the seeds for something that's going to flourish eventually. And, something I heard, along that whole entire story that you just gave me is, dude, it is hustle, 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 busting your ass the entire time. And that's something that people don't understand. Like, when you love what you do, which I can tell that you do, and you've put, all your energy, most of your money into this, you're doing it because you love it, right? And you're sacrificing your time. It's not like you're, working that job, which you have been, right? I mean, you worked all those jobs when you first started, and then on
Mhm.
the time that you had free, you put that into building what you've built, which is crazy. And a lot of people don't realize, like, when you take on an entrepreneurial journey like that, it's like taking care of a little baby. Like, I just had a one
Mhm.
year old, dude. I'll tell you, like, if I can compare my 1 year old to my business, it's actually very similar. Oh shit, I gotta do the marketing. Oh crap, I gotta change the diaper. Oh crap, I gotta brush his teeth. Oh crap, I gotta pay the bills over here. Oh, I gotta pay taxes. Oh, I gotta wipe his face after eating. All these things, and it's like keeping a baby alive is basically keeping the business going. That's what it is. I always like to compare it to a baby, and I love my business. That's why I do what I do. That's why I'm up late at night, talking to all these factories, figuring out designs, all these things that we've done. But I definitely resonate. That resonates a lot with a little bit of my journey because, dude, it's a freaking grind. I mean, I don't know about you, but it can be exhausting, but it's a grind, and especially for
Mhm.
you, dude. I mean, you're sitting on inventory that's gonna sell in the future, right? So you gotta really prepare and plan. I mean, how hard is that? Is it pretty hard to gauge interest? Like, are you at a point where you already know your clientele is probably going to buy it out? I mean, or is there a level of kind of
I have
guessing?
no idea. I've been growing in my strategy. I have to, I mean, I'm making this, I'm committing to buying wine 3 years before I'm going to sell it. I have no idea where my business is going to be in 3 years. Yeah, sure, I'm growing. I don't know how big I actually want to get just for like my own personal happiness and like how I want this company to go. So yeah, it's tons of guesswork. What I've done basically is just increase sales continually every year until I hit my max production for my current facilities in 2023. So 2024, I'm probably going to match that, but I don't really know how big I'm going to be in a few years because I am constantly growing and growing a decent amount. But like I said, there's only so much I can do. Personally, I'll have to bring people on. It's a lot of it's a crazy mental game that I'm sure you understand. Where like there's times where you're like, man, I'm not going to make it. Like, this is
Mhm.
totally screwed, or something big goes bad and
Oh
it's
yeah.
all on you to fix. And there's
Yep.
so many different things that can go wrong that you talk about loving it. And I would not say that I loved it the whole time. And wouldn't say that like I got into, I definitely didn't get into wine because I loved it. I got into wine because it was a great opportunity. And I thought there was a lot of good things about wine that I couldn't get from other businesses, like working outside,
Yep.
somewhat, and then working in business somewhat, and then having honestly, I wanted the long time to entry because this is my first real business. I needed to figure out how to do it.
You
And
love
I
the
couldn't
you
have if
love
I
the
needed.
hustle. You like to be,
Mhm.
on the ground doing all that. That's what you love doing. You like
Yeah, I
hustling,
like my feet in
controlling
the
what you're doing.
fire.
Yeah.
The moments where the like the moments where things go haywire is where I feel most alive. So like I don't want those moments, but they happen. And
Yeah.
I want the responsibility. So I always feel like if you're entrepreneurship is sexy right now. But if you're not the kind of person who wants the ball at the end of the game in crunch time, you're probably not going to be a great number one. You might be a great number two or number three, but like if you're not that person who wants the pressure, it's going to be really hard to be an entrepreneur because there's so much that goes wrong and there's so much that you just have to come alive and get it done. So yeah, it's a lot. I mean, as you know, it's a hard mental game, and I think that that's the battle is having the right mindset.
Yeah, dude. People always look at the pretty stuff. They look at the cover, but inside the book, behind the story of an entrepreneurial life, dude, there is so much. Like, I've always told people, I'm like, everything you see is basically a compilation of all the jobs that I've had, all the learning that I've had to do over the past like 6 years, to be able to come up with what we've cut, from. And I always go back to this. I always love to post stuff like this, like, from an idea. I took a picture when I was on the computer designing everything. I got like crackers on my, table. I got like a bottle of Coke over here. It's like it's just a mess. And it started from an idea, and now it's into our reality. Fast forward 4 years. I got watches that are worn in 40 countries, right? And so it's like people need to understand that the recipe for success and passion is not a straight line. It's like
Mhm.
everywhere, right? There's so many things going on, so many factors. And I totally agree with you, man. I mean, I've been there. It's not easy, and people like see and judge based on what they see, but they don't understand the story. And I'm a big. That's why that's what caught my eye with you. I'm like, dude, because see, I love when people document on social media. Like, people think they don't watch, but they watch. Okay, you might not get the 100 likes. People are watching, people seeing it, and if you post 10 times, more likely than not, I'm probably gonna see it 8 times. If you only post one time, maybe I probably won't see it, right? So the more people post, which, dude, I was actually, because I want to talk about the Satoshi Reserve that you made. I was scrolling down because I pull a picture. I'm like, man, dude, this guy has been posting so much since like 5 days ago. I can't even get to the picture. And I'm like, but yeah, I like that because you're documenting your journey. And I love when people do that. So let's talk about the Satoshi Reserve. So how many bottles did you make of that?
I made 210 bottles of my Satoshi's Reserve, and what I did was I picked out the best barrel from my 2021 vintage. So a lot of people don't realize that within each barrel, it tastes a bit different. So there's tons of nuance between there, and I just went in and yeah, vintner select. Other people might like the best barrel, but I chose the one that I like the most. Bottled 210 bottles of it, and this is all from 2021. So that was like right when I was really diving into Bitcoin, having it totally wreck my life as far as change the framework of how I thought about everything. And I've been wanting to do this project for 3 years. So I started this project 3 years ago and it's finally coming to fruition. I've been saying I wanted a Bitcoin wine for so long.
Man, that's
And
crazy. 3 years.
so I just wanted to make sure if it's the best, if it's a bottle representing or in honor of the greatest money in the world, I wanted to make it at least my best wine. So made it my best wine, and then I love that Satoshi is an unknown figure, and he's kind of a bit of like a kind of a hooded stranger, but like you feel comfortable with it almost.
Yeah.
And so I thought
No,
back
it's
to
badass. I love
don't
it.
know if you're a Lord of the Rings fan, but I thought back to
Oh, yeah.
Aragorn Strider. When they meet him, he's in a cloak and he's dark, but he turns out to be this super benevolent, amazing figure. So I kind of took that as inspiration, and then peonies surrounding him, kind of emerging from Peony Lane. So had a lot of fun branding it, had a lot of fun making it, and it's been an amazing project and great wine. So
Nah, dude,
cool to finally have my two passions melded.
it's totally badass. When I saw it, I'm like, okay, this is pretty serious. And dude, you sold that wine, like you sold number 21 for $2,752.
Well, the price was higher a few days ago. Bitcoin went down since
Right,
we
that's
talked.
right. Yeah, that's how about that? So that's, I mean, good, man. I mean, that just, that people care about very unique and authentic things, and that's what I'm all about. Like, is it unique? Is it authentic? Was there thought behind it? And I care about that. So what's happening? 1 through 21 already sold. You auctioned them off. What's going to happen? When are the other ones available?
1 through 21, I auctioned for Bitcoin only, so you couldn't bid with dollars, which is my first chance to really say like you can only buy this with good money. The rest of these bottles will be released at the halving, and they will be for sale on my website, peonylanewine.com, Peony, and super excited to get them to more people. 21 is kind of just a tester, get it out there for a few people. A little bit of like a bonus to get it there for the halving. But if you're looking for something to hold on to until next halving, these wines will be even better. So Cabernet Sauvignon, which is the variety that's in there, typically 5 to 10 years is pretty good for aging on that. And we're already at 3. So you'll be at about 7 or 8 years by the time the next halving comes, and that will just be an incredible bottle of wine. It is right now, but it'll just continue getting better, just like the Bitcoin price.
All right, I did get one of these as soon as the halving starts. It'll be a nice little halving gift. I actually have my Bitcoin halving watches that we designed, and we launched in January. We pre-ordered 100 of them. All 100 sold out in like 2 weeks. They're actually coming in for the halving next week. A lot of people are kind of mad. Oh, dude, the halving's happening Saturday. Why am I getting them the next week? I'm like, dude, I'm sorry. Okay, I can't do everything perfect. I pushed as hard as I could to get this, to arrive to you guys. But, pretty cool, man. A lot of similarities in what we do. What do you say are two of the hardest things that you've encountered as an entrepreneur, or especially with? Okay, go general, and then I want to hear like specific to wine.
Yeah, so generally, I would say that you are confronted in a very visceral way with your weaknesses. You have to really do a lot of soul searching to say, like, oh, I'm bad at this. I need help. And honestly, it took me a long time to even get to that point with most things within the last year. And I'm 5 years in. I was trying to do everything or just not doing it because I was bad at it.
Yeah.
But if you don't have serious, like, ability to be introspective and humility to say I'm bad at this, I need help, you're very limited in how far you can go. And it's hard because you're going to fail at that for a long time before you finally say I need help. And sure, some people can do it alone, some people are good at everything, but figure out what you're good at, drive that, and then find people to fill in where your weaknesses are. Generally with winemaking, it's a bit of the classiness, like it's a hard time with the wine industry itself, where there's a lot of elitism within it, where the first thing I get introduced to people, and the first thing a lot of people tell me when they find out I'm a winemaker is, oh, I don't know anything about wine. And to me, that says, like, they just don't want to be put in a spot where they have to answer all these questions because they feel stupid. Because
Yeah.
wine is meant to make you, when you know wine, it's really easy to seem smart, and that's the reason to know wine, is to seem sophisticated, to get something out of other people feeling you're better than them
Yeah.
in this certain way. And it elevates your status. And that's what bothers me the most about the wine industry. It's a black box. You could know a lot about wine, but not have any real opinions. You don't know anything that goes into the wine. So yeah, a wine could be like rated super high, but it's actually got a ton of stuff that's bad for you in it, and it's just boring. It's just like all these other wines. So
Yeah.
once I get confronted with that question, all I respond is, all I care about is whether you like it or not. I don't care if you think that's sophisticated or anything. I don't care if you like this wine more or less than some other wine that I consider crappy. It's such an intangible thing. Wine is art, and there's such a stigma about knowledge about wine. All that matters is whether you like it. And then the next level to go is not specific knowledge about the wine, it's, do you feel good after drinking it? Those are the two most important things when it comes to wine. And if you don't say yes to both, you should probably try more wine.
Yeah. Well, I do got to try more wine. So guys, make sure that you go to, is it Peony Lane.com? Yes.
PeonyLaneWine.com.
Wine.com, and check him out. Yeah, especially guys, since he's an entrepreneur, guys, just like us watching, support him. We got to support other people who are hustling and doing good things, it'd be another thing if he was making some bad product, but this is not a bad product. This is authentic, unique. I think we should all support him and what he's doing. And then what do you got to say? I mean, to the audience, what are 2 tips that you want to give to someone who's on the fence, about pursuing their entrepreneurial journey? Like, dude, I want to make pine trees and sell them for Christmas. I don't know, something. What do you have to say to those people? 2 tips.
2 things. One, do you hate your job? Because that was a huge impetus for me to want the entrepreneurial path, was that I just hated working for people. I hated being told what to do. I wanted to do things my way. Second is, there's ways that you can kind of dabble. There's ways you can not give up everything to get your feet wet, or go for it and see if it works. It could just like save up money to be able to quit your job or take a little bit less at a different job that allows you more time, and say, hey, I have 6 months. Let me make this happen. If it's not happening in 6 months, at least I tried. And you'll always, if you want to do this, you're going to have regret until you do it. And that was some of the best advice that I always got from my dad, was I never regretted doing anything. I regretted the things that I didn't do. And so that was kind of, I needed to do this. I did it, and I'm glad I did. I did a lot of other things that I've regretted, that I've done, that I didn't stick with, but I didn't regret trying them. And if you really feel like you want to step into entrepreneurship, you got to do it. It's a doer's game. Thinkers don't make it.
Yep. I agree with that. If you, and I something interesting, if you you end up overthinking so much that you take away all the opportunities that you had. So it is about trying. It is about trial and error and doing things. Now, going into this, hold on, I gotta look this up because I need my number right. How many times? Hold on. All right, okay. So it took Colonel Sanders, who made Kentucky Fried Chicken, one of the biggest chicken chains in the entire world, 1,000 attempts to sell his recipe. So 1,000 times people told him no, selling his recipe. I don't even know how old he was. I think he was in his 60s when people said yes to his recipe. He sold it, and then he was able to create this franchise at like 65 years old or something crazy like that. And his dream came true. Think of how many people, and this goes back to the patience element for entrepreneurship. Guys, like, if you're in your 20s and it doesn't work out, you got your 30s. If you're in the 30s, it doesn't work out, you're in your 40s. Like, life is a long game, man. And especially with entrepreneurship, people expect to hit the moon on their first try, on their second try, on their third, fourth. Dude, there were like 6 jobs that I was doing before I started doing the watches. I had some of them while I was doing the watches, but I had to try stuff. I was a tennis coach, still do that a little bit. I worked for the Department of Defense, hated it. I worked for a contractor for the Department of Defense, didn't like it. I did so many things. I did a master's degree. Dude, I dropped out of that master's degree. I'm like, you're trying to teach me about money when all I'm seeing is how to learn calculus and nothing of how money's created, how money's handled by the Federal Reserve. You're not teaching me anything. I've probably quit so many things because I tried those things. And that's where people need to, I feel like, in my opinion, people need to try things, do them. If you mess up, dude, life goes on. Okay. If the market didn't care about it, sorry, your product wasn't good. Doesn't matter. Move on. There's so many other things you can start doing. So that's my thoughts about, like, doing this. Like, you got to be patient. You got to be open to failing. I mean, the best players out there, the best players out there are the players who lost the most. That's how it is. And part of it is because they played the longest. If you play a long game, you're going to lose a lot, but along those lines, you're going to win a lot too. Right? That's the name of the game, right? You can't be afraid to fail. You can't be afraid to get those big L's and mistakes. Dude, I just played a they call it 5.0 league. So you kind of start like 2.0 and go like in half increments all the way up to 5.0. And then you can go to like 8.0, and that's professional tennis. Playing the stupid league, and I play this 55-year-old. And I swear he's like my nemesis or something. Like he just, like, for some reason I can't beat this dude. He's about like 6'10", huge dude, 55, does like marathons, all this, beats me. Dude, I feel like shit. I'm like, I can't believe I keep losing to this guy. But it's just that game is, man. I mean, you got your L's, you're gonna have your losses. I'm going on a tangent with tennis. That's kind of what I do. But
No, but it's a relationship with losing. You have to be able to take that and then keep going and not worry about it too much. Because I mean, yeah, you're right. There's so many times where I've lost, whether it's just a sale, a customer interaction where I'm like, wow, I handled that horribly, or like literally having wine go bad or breaking bottles or something like that. It's just heavy water under the bridge. You got to be able to move on.
Yeah. Oh, I totally agree. So Ben, we're gonna wrap this up. I do want to thank you for coming onto the show again. Maybe this can be one of many other interviews we do in the future. Maybe every time you release a vintage, we'll do a little video, push your out there. So again, check out peonylane.com. Okay, so we're gonna put the captions on this video so you can see his link and website. Where do people find you on Twitter?
I'm at Ben Justman, so just my name on Twitter, also on Noster, and starting to post on LinkedIn a bit more.
Awesome, brother. Well, appreciate you you coming to the show, and hopefully we talk again in the future.
Awesome. Cheers, man.